This is The Scoop for Wednesday.
Good afternoon. I'm Megan Bowman with the WMNF News headlines. Governor Ron DeSantis is blasting a $500 million immigration proposal passed by state lawmakers yesterday. He says it's not following President Donald Trump's agenda and is not strong enough. But State Senator Randy Fine is a close ally of Trump. He co-sponsored the legislature's bill and says DeSantis is wrong to use the president's name after running against him in the presidential primary.
I'm not going to take lectures from someone who a year ago didn't think Donald Trump should be president. Welcome to the team. And there has been no one on the team more dedicated to President Trump being successful than the guy in the front row who's running this bill.
The bill strips immigration enforcement powers from the governor. It comes after lawmakers rejected an immigration-focused special session called by DeSantis and then called their own. A list from the U.S. House Republicans propose over $2 trillion in Medicaid cuts. WMNF's Chris Young reports how it could affect more than 4 million Floridians.
Politico reports the list emerged from the House Budget Committee. Joan Alker is the executive director at Georgetown University Center for Children and Families.
It is so important for the public to understand the kinds of impacts these cuts could have, which would be truly devastating.
According to an August report by KFF, 1 in 9 Floridians ages 19 to 64 rely on the service. And for children, it's 2 out of 5. Latifah Griffin moved from Pennsylvania to West Palm Beach in 2023. She says the cuts could impact her and her son, who suffers from cerebral palsy.
I would likely need to quit my job because I would need to stay home due to being unable to afford the services for him without Medicaid.
California leads the country with the most people on Medicaid. Chris Young, WMNF News.
Samir Jain is a businessman from India who survived labor trafficking in the U.S. Now he lives in Tallahassee and serves on the National Human Trafficking Advisory Council, which is comprised of survivors.
The reason it was created is to have inside understanding of what really happens. What are the reason trafficking really happens, to understand those vulnerabilities, to help identify those victims of trafficking who are already in there, and what all services that are need to be provided to victims.
Jane points out that traffickers often groom people for years, as his did. January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. A national exam found children in the U.S. post-pandemic continue to lose ground on reading skills and are making little improvements in math. The results from the National Assessment of Educational Process show growing inequality. While the highest-performing students have started to regain lost ground, lower-performing students are falling further behind. Florida was among states that saw reading scores fall last year, but the Sunshine State was also one of the first to return to the classroom during the pandemic. AAA Auto Club released its first-ever cruise forecast. It details historic numbers for this year. WMNF's Joshua Hightower reports Florida is a factor in the vacation boom.
For the third year in a row, cruise travel volumes have reached a record high. AAA expects 19 million Americans to take an ocean cruise this year, a 4.5% increase from 2024. And the country's biggest ports all reside in the Sunshine State. Miami and Fort Lauderdale have some of the busiest cruise ports worldwide. AAA spokesperson Mark Jenkins says cruise ships are a big boom for Florida's tourism.
It just speaks to the importance that the cruise industry has on the state economy, because you have people not just here in Florida who want to cruise, but there are people who are traveling to Florida from out of state, from out of country. Many of them are coming specifically for a cruise. Others are coming maybe to visit the theme parks in Orlando, and then they'll spend part of their time on a cruise ship as well.
Port of Tampa also hosts cruise ships. However, limitations like the Sunshine Skyway Bridge allow for only smaller vessels to dock. Jenkins says the cruise industry is currently looking for ways to increase options for passengers to sail out of Tampa. Joshua Hightower, WMNF News.
The National Weather Service says to expect partly sunny skies today with the high nearing 71 and partly cloudy tonight with your lows reaching 54. Temperatures will likely creep back into the 80s tomorrow. I'm Megan Bowman with the WMNF News headlines.
This is The Scoop, recorded at WMNF Tampa.